Beer on the Run podcast.
Beer on the Run podcast.
This is what you need. You don't even know you need it, but you need it. Trust
you need this in your life.
This in your life.
Thursday is Sloppy Moose.
Strange. Okay. All right.
So we have a slushy machine and we make fireball slushy.
Let's talk about tacos.
I say, who is Ted Danson to Ted Danson?
I could do a naked beer mile.
I really enjoy doing this. What are you guys drinking?
So what we're drinking, so Clint, you probably know this. So Tuesdays are $10 growler Tuesdays at Device Brewing. And so every Tuesday I make a trip over to Device and get a couple $10 growlers. And then I make sure that I tip the server, at least the equivalent of what I would normally pay the growler for. So, make sure to keep these guys employed and keep them happy and serving beer. And so today's beer from the growler is a Maiden Sack West Coast IPA, pretty standard Device beer.
That is another place that I've randomly ran into, Alan. I go buy beer and then I see Alan at all these places. One time, kind of funny, during full-on lockdown, I was at Cap Tap and I had a flat of beer. And then Alan walks in and I was like, I swear this isn't a week's worth of beer, but it was probably about a week's worth of beer.
And Alan and Bev, do you want to introduce yourselves to everyone?
Sure. You want to start off, Bev?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm Alan Abbs, married to Beverly Anderson Abbs, but we both live here in Sacramento, California. I've been running for about 20 odd years. Before that, I was a bike racer, still do a little bit of bike racing, but did road racing and mountain bike racing, and then had a couple of years where we were adventure racing, extreme athletes, and so we did the multi-day kayaking and rock climbing and orienteering and all that type of crazy stuff.
And I'm Bev Anderson Abbs, and he pretty much gave our lives, so there's not much else to say. I run a lot. I work for the State Water Resources Control Board as an environmental scientist and data scientist. And if I seem distracted, our dog is very upset about the thunder, so she's kind of being weird.
So I just warned Jack about that. And then I don't know if you guys heard it while you were talking. My dogs just went nuts. There is hail sitting in my backyard like it's snow. And it happened about an hour ago. And it's sitting and not going away. And there's thunder, lightning, and pretty worried about the dogs during the podcast right now.
So both of you, or all three of you, are in the Sacramento area of California. I'm up here in Seattle. We have much nicer weather than you do. Sunny and 45 degrees, no precipitation today. So
that will be the only time you say that during this podcast, Jack, that Seattle is having better weather than what I'm having right now.
Yeah, I was going to say, we get this like one day a year.
Yeah.
And Clint, what's that IPA you're drinking today?
I am drinking, and you guys have heard, and I've told you, Jack, about Original Pattern. I'm going nuts about Original Pattern out of Oakland. And this is Undo the Voodoo IPA. And it's the second most brewery I'm stocking right now. Like Slice, I talk about Slice a lot, but Original Pattern, everything coming from Original Pattern is mind-blowing. It's so good.
And I got a local Seattle brewery, Lucky Envelope. They're up in the Ballard area. I'm drinking a hazelnut vanilla cream stout.
Oh, that's good.
I was just telling Clint before this that one of the two owners, he went to UC Davis undergrad and UCLA graduate school before coming up to Seattle to open a brewery.
Yeah.
I was debating between this. I had a coconut porter I've been saving also that I really want to try. This one won today.
Those both sound good.
So welcome on the show. As Alan said, you've both been running ultras for 20-ish years. Your ultra signups are almost identical, but amazing. You're running 50Ks and all the way back to at least 2000. I mean, obviously ultra signup might miss some of that before that. Most recently, you ran the Jed Smith 50 miler in is that along the American River? Was that along?
Yes, along the American River loops.
It's about a mile and a half from our house.
Yeah, so many people haven't done a live race in the past year. I mean, today's March 10th. For me, it's been exactly a year since work from home started. For some people, it's around this time. A lot of people haven't done a live race. So do you want to talk about this race in general? Like, what's it like to run a live event?
We've actually done a couple since the lockdown, having to travel quite a bit. You know, we did a live event in Tennessee and then one in Georgia last year. And then we did a 50K up at Greenhorn Ranch with Luis Escobar. But this was the most recent one that has been allowed here in Sacramento. They tried to get CIM in December, and then that got pulled kind of at the last minute. So it was a little different. It was very limited number of runners allowed to do it, and we had a time trial start. So each runner went off at 30-second intervals. So you never really had kind of a race feeling, and there was a little weirdness about that, but it was good to have the general feel of a race. You know, there were still people out there with you. There were still people passing. And then, you know, for the 50 miler, we started at 7:30, and then the 50K started at 8, and the marathon started at 8:30. So once those started going, there were enough people at random places on the course that you actually did feel like, hey, there's a race here with real people involved. So it was cool. It was nice to get back into it, and it was a beautiful day. A little bit chilly for my taste, but nice day overall. And you know, it was fun to get back. Looking for more.
The report I heard from Sean Rainey, I was talking to Sean, and he said everybody kept saying was, it's so great to be racing again, and that was so miserable. So does that sum it up?
Pretty much. It was, yeah, I have not done any kind of real training for something like that. So I got to about the 5th lap, 25-ish miles, a little over 25 miles. And my body just said, no, this next 25 is really going to hurt you. So it was not a pretty last 25.
So the good news, bad news about Jed Smith, like Bev mentioned, the start line's a mile and a half from our house. And then the race itself is 5-mile loops. So you run on the south side of the American River, you get to a bridge, you cross over the bridge, you run on the north side of the American River, cross over a bridge, and then you're back at the start finish line. So this is a part of the river trail where we run every day anyway, because it's so close to the house. And back in the pre-pandemic days when we actually used to go to work, we would ride our bikes to work down that same stretch of trail. And so, we know every inch of that course, for better or for worse. And, and it's great that we're out there racing. It's our local club's event, which is a great club. But after you've done like the 5th or 6th loop during the day, and you start to realize that you've run that loop 100 times or so in the last year, gets to be a little bit boring. But it was fun to be out there.
And to mention your local club, Buffalo Chips is a very long-standing, great club here in Sacramento, Buffalo Chips Running Club, that puts it on. And before we go any further, because neither one of them are going to say it, Bev won for the females 6 of 6. So that's 6 times you've ran it, 6 times you've won. And then I believe, Bev, you were 6th overall and Alan was 7th overall. So he 5th, and then Alan was 7th.
Right.
Okay. All right. Great finishes. Like, it was awesome to see.
And Bev ran 7:07:57, and Alan ran 7:34:06. So great times as well. Especially, you said you haven't been training. I wish I could run a 7:07 without training. So that's great to hear.
Well, you guys have been on the bikes so much. Is there something coming up with the bikes? Like, I know you guys have been on the bikes more than usual lately.
We've done a little bit of bike riding just because the weather's been so nice, and it's good to stretch out your legs. But they haven't. We used to do like a mountain bike series up at Folsom Lake that would be ending about this time of year, and they didn't have it this year. And so there really, there hasn't the competitive bike season, really hasn't. It shut down last year and really hasn't started up again. So, but hopefully, some of those bike events will start coming back as well too.
And to your point of we're cycling more now, that's not quite true, because when we were actually going into work, we commuted by bike. So we were getting a fair bit of cycling then. And that's something that we're actually missing. So that's kind of why we've started trying to add like mountain bike Mondays and do some other cycling stuff.
And while I'm running, I see Alan go by on the bike, and it's like, hey, he's not running, he's on the bike. So
yeah, I mean, that's actually an interesting point. Like for me, I lost a lot of training of not training, like not the commute itself. I used to get a lot of walking in from commute, and then I also occasionally would do a run commute in the morning and take the bus home. So there's a lot of lost miles that you don't necessarily think about because of work from home.
Yeah, we were for quite a while, for probably I think close to a year, we were riding our bikes into work, which is like depending on the route we took, anywhere from 8-ish miles to about 11 miles. So we'd ride our bikes, leave our bikes there and run home, and then run in the next day. And we lost all of that. So, you don't really think about it, but that's a ton of just solid movement.
Yeah. It's a lot easier to get in some of these runs when you wake up in the morning and you realize, oh, my bike's at work. The only way for me to get to work is to run. And so I need to do this right now. And now that we don't have that motivation to run to work, it's easy to say, I'll start in half an hour, start in an hour, and then sometimes you don't quite get the volume that you might otherwise get if you have to absolutely build it into your day.
Or it's, oh, yucky weather, I don't really need to do anything.
That's what's hard with winter altogether. Now, one thing with Jed Smith, before we go too far away from Jed Smith, I will say, I know you guys had friends from your beer running group, your Thursday night beer running group, and there's nothing wrong with high dollar tequila. There's nothing wrong with champagne, but you guys celebrated with those two things and not beer. And while I was a little jealous, at the same time, I was a little offended. Like, well, it's a beer running group. Where's the good beer at the celebration?
Well, actually, so for me, so I finished the 50 miler and I hadn't eaten a whole lot, and then they didn't give me high end tequila. They gave me Fireball, and so I did this big shot of Fireball, and everything was fine. And then Sean Ranney dropped by, and we started trading stories about running across Tennessee. And then all of a sudden, I noticed I was slurring my words. And I couldn't string together a sentence, and I got hammered off, a big shot of Fireball after running a 50 miler. It's legit.
You're a cheap date, Alan.
Yeah. And in our defense, we did have beer there, but when they popped open the champagne, it's like really hard to say no, and especially to the Patron Silver. You just can't turn that down.
Top shelf.
So Clint mentioned your Thursday run group. Are you part of the which run group is that? I know Clint mentions a few Thursday night beer groups in Sacramento. So
this is the really poorly named Beer and River Run group.
So not Sloppy Moose.
No. We used to do Sloppy Moose years ago, but it got kind of sketchy with the number of people running on roads with traffic going 40 miles an hour, and we just thought, no, we'll join this small group where we are not going to die and we're close to home. So the meeting place is a couple miles from our house, so it's nice.
Then Bev throws in hill repeats for their Thursday nights. Like, okay, we're gonna have beers after this, but first we're going to run up the Levee Hills and we're going to do some repeats, and then we're going to drink beer.
How do you know about my workouts that I start pushing?
I'm a stalker, Bev. I'm a stalker. I haven't been there, but I stalk.
Yeah, it's time to start adding those back in.
It's kind of funny because our old Thursday night run group here in Seattle at a brewery, our friend Woody, whenever we let him make the course, there was always hill climbs and stairs. He found a way to put hill climbs and stairs in every run, which isn't that hard to do in Seattle.
Well, it's kind of nice around the Jed Smith course. There is a levee going around everything, and the cyclocross / gravel bike guys have created little up-down trails all along the levee. So, you know, you can get a heck of a workout doing that as a run and just going up and down every trail that's out there. And if there's no trails, there's areas where there's steps, there's little access roads. So, you know, you can really hammer yourself on those.
Getting it all.
Yeah.
We could have gone a whole lot longer. And
we do get that magic again. It happens every year. What, the third weekend of May?
Because you have a bachelor's in toxicology?
Yeah, I do. Bachelor of Science.
And you're having a beer after a run. So please tell us that a beer is good for you after a strenuous workout.
It is.
I'm taking on my science and nutrition and biochem courses, and I learned about like how good the alcohol moderation is for musculoskeletal health. I'm loving the science behind beer, behind alcohol.
Well, today is the day that I learn if I'm faster than a turkey.
Yeah, around this time last year, I had finally almost achieved beer running group nirvana.
The first thing out of my mouth was, how do I quit smoking? And do you think I can run 50 miles?
Bye.
Bye.
Nailed it.